How did you launch him 80
You
feet
told
in
me
the air?
to boat flip him!
I didn't tell you to launch him 78
I
feet
flipped
in the
him
air.
in the boat, didn't I?
Send it to the moon.
I sent it! You said boat flip him!
Oh, yeah.
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never, disappointed out here because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure, because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
On my property, you didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Monday Night Live. I am so sorry that we had to take last week off. As you guys know, I'm a part of the Maryland Black Bass Association. We basically help make laws and legislation for the freshwater fisheries of Maryland. And we ended up having a 4.5-hour meeting. Jesus God. Government makes you just want to be a libertarian and live out in the woods because it's just nothing gets accomplished. No matter how much you try to offer suggestions, it's like, let's put that into litigation and let's put that into a litigation. It's absolutely insane. And the biggest thing that blew my mind is if you have a fishing license and you don't have one and you get fined, that money doesn't go back into the fisheries. That goes into another slosh bucket. So you don't even get your fisheries fixed up in every state if you get a fine for not having your license or what have you. And it just really shows you just the crap of government. Anyway, I'm not doing an RMP announcement about that stuff, but it's kind of, that stuff is really shocking to me. The next announcement is, guys, we hit our big Patreon goal, which was really awesome. We are having the Patreon meetup. It's going to be August 17th, Saturday, August 17th at 6 p.m. I'll make out a big announcement right up later this week. Right now, one of the guest speakers will be Tyler Highpole of Highpole Guides Fishing at Lake Anna. He's going to be talking about Lake Anna's forward-facing sonar, and honestly, whatever you want to talk to him about. I'm going to be putting out a poll for what type of food you guys want to eat. It's all paid for. All the food, drink, and everything is going to be paid for. This will be a closed event. It'll be after hours for Jake's Bait and Tackle. We can come on out and have a good time. Be giving away some free stuff and also making a couple of other announcements just for you Patreon members. So we got all that stuff wrapped up. Moment ado. We're going back down south. We haven't been to Kerr Reservoir in a very long time. I really think I like till the spring because I feel like I got into this really bad situation where I'm just following the tournament trails around, and I feel like that's an injustice because people are still fishing at these places, even though the BFLs and everyone else kind of left. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Will Nash. Will, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
What have you been up to this year?
Since we last talked, I think it was January. I think I was coming back from striper fishing the last time we talked. So I fished a bunch of cat trails tournaments throughout the spring, some Kerr Lake Bass Masters, and I fished all the 5 Alive trail that they had on bugs this year. Cashed a few checks, didn't win any of them. Flirted with it a few times, but just never could get that big bite to push me over the end. But that's pretty much it. Fished the cat, the big championship. There's 216 boats. That was pretty cool.
Damn.
Yeah, went down there and fished 2 days before that, and the bite was just on fire during all that. So that was a good time. And then just been fun fishing, doing some striper fishing, crappie fishing, bass fishing on bugs as much as I can. Fished at Heiko a few times. I haven't been spending as much time there as I like to spend usually in a year's time. And I haven't spent any time on Gaston. I was telling my buddy that the other day. So I've been seeing some nice bags come out of there. I just haven't had a chance to get there. I've been spending most of my time on bugs, honestly.
Gaston is a weird cat because, I remember back when I was a kid, and this is 10, 15 years ago, you had a lot of grass in Gaston, and you could smoke largemouth. And now it's like, it's a different place completely than when I remember it when I was a kid.
Yeah, when I was going, I like just the docks and frogging, man. That's just do that all day long. That's all I'd go down there for. I do that at Heiko a lot, too. I know offshore deals or offshore is a big deal down there. I just haven't spent enough time scanning out there. I got a few spots down towards the dam, but most of my stuff's back up towards the river that I like to fish.
Especially this time of year, it's such a weird transition where the weights will be pretty decent, but then you can set your watch to it that in about 30 days, it's just going to just bottom out and crazy.
Yeah, I was on bugs yesterday for about 8 or 9 hours, and I'm starting to feel like it's that drought, that August, beginning of September, where it just gets super, super dry. I feel like that's coming on. Still caught a bunch of fish, just nowhere near the quality I've been catching the last few weeks leading up to yesterday. I think my best 5 yesterday may have gone 11 and a half, 12 pounds. And a lot of them are spots. But I'm out there chasing a schooling bite, so you're going to run into a lot of spots. I've caught a few largemouth too, but just that 3-pound wolf pack of largemouth that I like to find this time of year out deep. I just hadn't run into them. They'll be there. I think the schooling bite's actually turned on a little bit earlier this year than it has in the past. But I think it's going to fizzle out a little bit, and once some cool nights start coming, it'll fire back up.
How consistent is a schooling bite to find and stay on? Like for fun, it's one thing to be like, go out, we're going to find some hook, some striper. It's great. But to say like, oh, I'm going to fish a cat or a BFL for a big purse. Is it a dependable thing, or is it more of like, it's a happy thing if it works out?
I think it's a dependable thing if you find the area holding quality leading up to now they can ghost you in a night, and most times they don't. But, usually if you find them a few days leading into an area, they'll be somewhere close to that area. Main lake brush, rock, points, cane piles, things of that nature that'll hold them. But a lot of times you'll find them relating to a section, and it's been my experience that they'll stay in that little area for a while. But again, the main thing with the schooling bite is covering as much water as you can, absolutely as much water as you can, trying to hit as many spots as you can. But you kind of want to narrow down where the quality is at if you can limit your spots that you have to stop at.
That's really important. And then, as always, guys, drop a question down in the comment section. Best question of the night will win a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. This is not a question, but a statement here from David Stottlemyre. Hello, Will. How is that Express X19 treating you?
Oh, I got bad news for you. I got out of the Express, believe it or not. I don't have anything at all bad to say about Express. I absolutely love that boat. And you want to talk about a fast boat. It could get you where you're going in a hurry, but I'm finding myself more and more fishing in Nutbush and around the dam. And I learned a valuable lesson in that cat trail today. It beat the living hell out of me and my fish. Like I said, I told everybody 7 out of 10 trips that Express will do everything you want it to do. But man, those 3 or 4 trips where it won't, when it's heavy winds or wake, it's an aluminum boat,
Mm-hmm.
So I switched over to a Ranger. I got a Ranger Z520R. I lost, quite a bit of speed, obviously, but what I gained in fishing platform and stability and ride. I was with my buddy Tom yesterday, and he's fished out of the Express a lot. Even he can tell a difference when you're out there and 1 and 2 footers doing 55 or 60 versus the Express. I switched over to Ranger, jumped into a fiberglass. So, but like I said, I love that Express. I wish I could have kept them both. I just couldn't afford to keep them both. One of them
Are you still running Garmin, or what are you running?
So I was running Lowrance and Garmin before on the Express, and I'm running that on the new boat. I got two lives at the console, and then I got a Garmin up front and another live up front with that. So I'm Garmin all the way when it comes to live scope or to live view. I've seen the others. There's nothing. I think Lowrance is good. It's just
it is good. Yeah.
It could be just that I'm not willing to go through the muscle memory and the reps to learn something new. But Garmin, I can usually tell by the type of return what species it is, and I don't want to learn that all over again with another one. And Lowrance, I've seen it. Maybe it does different. I just haven't looked at it enough, but it doesn't seem like it differentiates the strength of the signal return like Garmin does.
We got a question here on Instagram. Again, Instagram guys, I can't really share it. S.KBP. What are your settings for your forward-facing sonar? Do you have it out to like 100 feet, 50 feet?
Yeah, so I run it at 90 foot out and always at 30 foot. I was fishing in like 6 to 8 foot of water a couple weekends ago, and I had set it to 20 foot. I won't go any lower than 20 foot no matter what depth I'm in, but generally I keep it at 30 foot as far as depth. I don't do anything auto, and then 90 foot out. Sometimes when I'm in like search mode and I'm looking for big schools of stripers, I may go to 120 or 130 to try to find them. And then once I kind of locate them, I'll zero in on them and then set it back to 90. Gain is usually 64 to 69%. I've got all my stuff typed out. I could drop it to you if you could post it for them at some point. They could see it, but that's the ones I can call from memory. Then with the recent update, it really threw all my settings into a haywire. But I ended up I had to go figure out how to reconfigure the whole thing. So I wrote them all down and share them with people who kind of face the similar thing.
I know another question is going to pop up here in a second, which is like, is it worth updating your unit when it comes out to be updated with the
software update?
Yeah.
I'd say if you got it, if you're happy with it, don't mess with it. It's been my experience. I mean, you never want to be, I mean, I work in IT, so you never want to be the first one on anything, right? You always want to be a couple versions or a couple subversions behind, always. Because at the end of the day, those first versions, you're alpha and beta for the most part. At scale, you're alpha and beta at scale. They've probably piloted a little bit with some smaller user bases, but never at scale. So
that's why it's hard for me to ever switch trolling motor brands. It's like, I'm not against Power Pole and some of these other brand new trolling motors, but it's just your first edition. All Trucks has been doing it for so freaking long, and I know what I'm getting with it.
Well, I just recently switched to a Quest before I hopped over into the Ranger, and I'm Minn Kota all the way. But man, I had nothing but problems with that when they finally just replaced the whole thing. They were great, as far as warranty goes, but those first 2 or 3 days leading up to that Cat Championship, I was out there. It was getting stuck. It would freeze. It wouldn't work. I called them. They overnighted a new motherboard. My buddy Brandon Curtis at Southside Southern Boat Works, he hooked it up for me the night before. And I remember telling Austin, I was like, we hope it works today, because I don't know if it's going to work at all. But it ended up working the rest of the weekend. But it ended up continuing to have issues thereafter. But they warranted it. I mean, they shipped me a whole new product. Brandon put it all on their dime. So you can't, every issue I've ever had with Minn Kota, they were always great to work with in terms of warranty.
Is this all just with new products, you think? Or is it because of after COVID, the parts just aren't the same quality as they are before COVID?
I think it's both of those. There's something definitely. I mean, obviously, the supply chain during COVID impacted, speed to market and manufacturing, but the workforce was also impacted during COVID. People were paid to stay at home, so you're getting subpar labor force with, sometimes these companies are having to go secure parts from other companies that they normally wouldn't use on their product, but they're desperate. So, COVID boat. I'm sure you guys have heard that are listening. There is something to be said about boats made during that time. I really think there's something to be said about any product made during that time. And I don't know that it's been a quick bounce back either.
I agree with that. Because some boats nowadays too, it's not every brand, but there's just some where they just don't seem like they're built well. And that's why hulls, there are some Ranger hulls that are 20 years old that are still going for a hell of a price because they're bulletproof. And it's just weird to think that way in 2024. Some products just aren't up to snuff.
Yeah. That's why it was hard for me to get out of Express. That thing was a tank, man. I mean, it, like I said, it did everything you wanted to do except ride well in rough water. The speed, again, I love the speed in the thing, but at the end of the day in a tournament, that speed did me no good because I can't ride that fast in all that rough water. So I'd much rather be comfortable at 63 to 65 than not comfortable at the same speed. So,
were you running a Yamaha with Express, right? Or is it a Mercury?
Yeah. I was in a Yamaha. I was in a Ranger, another aluminum Ranger before the Express that I had. So I'm not foreign to Ranger and Mercury, but I really would have preferred to go back to a Yamaha. I really like that SHO a lot. So I'm hoping I don't have any issues with my Mercury. I've heard a lot of horror stories. So that was the only thing I didn't like about switching. But so far I like the Ranger. Like I said, it rides. I've only got 15 hours on it. So I'm still learning to drive the boat. Yeah, I'm still learning to drive the boat. That's not 15 fishing hours because I've been on the trolling motor more on the big motor with the bites I'm on. So, we're going to do our first service here soon. So, we'll see how that goes.
I've always wanted to get Yamaha. The only thing was because we're on the East Coast that there's less dealerships for Yamaha allegedly than out west. So, but those engines are just such bulletproof. It's definitely something I want to get.
Feels like it. I hear other people running Suzuki and things of that. Like Brandon, the guy I deal with a lot. He swears by Suzuki.
Japanese makes good shit, man. It doesn't break.
I'm saying the great warranty too. They're easy to service. They're reliable. And I read an article the week to watch what the offshore guys are running. Those because their life depends on it. They go out there and break down. They're in deep shit. So, and a lot of them are starting to run Suzuki and Honda. So
I have not seen a Honda engine. That's like a unicorn. I don't remember the last time I saw a Honda engine. I know they're around.
There was a fishing show I used to watch. It was two older gentlemen. I think they were in a Blazer.
Bass University?
Is it Bash University?
They had
maybe?
those like buck teeth that look completely fake. They're just dentures, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
one of
what you're
them
talking
had a
about.
Honda on there. I think that was the first Bass boat I ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a Honda in person either. But I mean, Honda is a household brand. Everybody knows Honda. So it's just what what these companies specialize in. But I had no complaints with my Yamaha. I loved it. And you can flash them if you feel like flashing them, and that's pretty cool. So that's always fun.
You mentioned that you're on the trolling motor a lot, and with your setup running 4 graphs, I know with my LV34, I'm gonna have to replace my batteries because those bitches are dying. And I know I got like cheap lead acid because I just didn't at the time feel like buying the lithiums. What's your battery setup to keep everything going? So
I'm really, really funny about my whole setup when it comes to batteries and electronics. You can ask English Choice how funny I am about it. So I'm running 2, everything's ionic lithium except my starting battery. I'm running one of those X2, I think it's a 34 class starting battery, but I run 2 36-volt lithiums in parallel for my trolling motor. And then I'm running a dedicated 125 amp hour ionic for all my graphs.
120, damn.
The thing with the graphs is I use the C-Clear wire harness. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I'm telling you, this product is worth its money. It cleared up a lot of issues for me just switching to it, but I didn't want all 4 units sharing the same harness load. So I've got one harness for my 2 up front going directly to my battery, and then one harness for my 2 on the bow. And I got crystal clear imagery with that, but it's a lot of extra weight. But I like during striper season, I'm on that trolling motor on high 95% of the day, honestly. So I need that. But even to like when the bite I'm on now, I pulled the boat in yesterday and started to charge it. My trolling motor batteries were 80%, and I ran them hard yesterday.
Damn.
Yeah. So the redundancy there helps. I've been thinking about taking the batteries out because the one thing I am getting used to in the Ranger is the hole shot. It's completely different. The Express is like you tap it and it's on pad, and the Ranger's a little sluggish out of the hole. So I've switched to a 4-blade prop, and I'm thinking about taking one of the batteries out because I don't need it. I mean, I could run it all day and only get to 50%. I feel like, but I like having that extra one there just in case.
Yeah, it's always been this. I have friends that are, if you're not first, you're last, and you got to go 120. And my thing is like, most of the water I run, you can never run at 120 because you'll be dead.
Yeah.
Just don't let you. So it's might as well just throw in the extra battery if need be, if you need it once you get there. That's a very interesting point. Would you ever get those trolling motor brakes? Would you actually see a need with how you're fishing? It sounds like that's what they were made for, is what you're doing.
Yes, I would. I'd actually, Tyler Trent and I were texting about that the other week. I was asking if he could, if he saw somebody that was selling them. I would. I mean, like my buddy Tom that fished with me yesterday, he said, man, them brakes would have been good today, wouldn't they? Because you're going, a lot of times those wolf packs will be coming at you and you have less room. So you get the bait in front of them and they may need some enticing for a little bit. By that time, your boat's drifting to them. They're coming to you. You're trying to catch them under the trolling motor. And for some reason, fish get fixated on live scope transducers. And it's like they'll get hypnotized by it and they'll kind of follow that around. They get more focused on that. At least the smaller ones do.
You mean the beam itself?
The beam itself. Yeah. I mean, I pulled a school of spots off a cane pile yesterday. They just followed me around under my trolling motor for 10 minutes. I'd turn the trolling motor back and they'd be following us. And I'd go forward and try to get up on the spot, and I'd have to get it on high to get away from them. Again, it's usually the smaller schools of spots that do that, but I don't know what it is about that. But anyways, those brakes I think would have really helped in some of those situations. But right now I couldn't imagine adding any more weight to the back of the boat with the whole shot that I'm getting. So
yeah, because like how many times are you on that, and what battery are they going on to? Like
it's a 12 volt. I think it's a 12 volt system, so you'd have to add another battery to. I'm already running 4, so I didn't want to add a 5th one. I mean, I could take one of the 36s out, but anybody?
Yeah, wow.
Go ahead.
Now, I was gonna say, at what point are we just throw a Tesla battery in the back of this thing? Because it's insane.
Yeah,
the amount of weight.
It is. But I will say this: anybody that's looking to make I believe a dedicated lithium battery in those C-Clear wiring harnesses, or at least a heavy gauge wire direct to your battery source for live scope setups, is the way to go, in my opinion. I think when you're sharing your live well with all your other stuff and your cranking battery and you're trying to pull a clear image off that, I think it just really matters to have a dedicated power source. Even if it does add a little bit more weight, it's just worth it.
I think 100%. That was the biggest change I did 2 years ago. Huge shout out to New Horizon Boat Builds. They did custom wiring harnesses for my whole boat, redid it, and now I have 13 volts, up at my graphs and everything, and that's with lead acid. It's such a little thing, and I know when you go on forums, like, I'll just do it yourself, but it is such a big deal if you spend the money on the graphs to get the harness to go with it. The cleanness of the image is insane.
Correct. You're buying that graph for the image you see on the advertisement, and they're failing to tell you that that's what they're doing. They're having a specialized wire harness run into a dedicated lithium battery. And like you said, I'll fire mine up, in the mornings, and it's 13.6. Once everything gets fired on, it's 13.2. And I have to fish 10 plus hours to get it to below 13. And before I put that C-Clear harness, we were running heavier gauge wire. But there was something through the different connections and terminal and the bus bars. It was losing voltage. I'd start at 13.2, and some days I'd be down to 12.1 by the end of the day. And man, you could tell the degradation of the screen and the return as the voltage kind of dropped throughout the day.
It's crazy. Let's see. We got a bunch of people over on Instagram. We got the current. Says on Kerr, how do you know when to target spots versus bucket heads?
I don't. So in the spring, I wouldn't say I ever target spot. I wouldn't say I ever target spots at all. I mean, I'm out there. I'll catch anything that'll bite, honestly. There's certain sections of the lake where I think the spots started showing up. I think Eastland Creek is where I first started running into spots and hearing other people start about spots. They started spreading out from there, and then obviously the tournaments just give them taxi rides all to the major boat ramps, and they just spread it all over the place. But when I would say is when I can go out and catch a spot, it's usually this time of year on the school and bite, just because they're so plentiful and they're fairly easy to find in terms of if you've spent your time scanning on side scan, finding the structure, they're fairly straightforward to find. Then you can always go on a long sloping point if it's got some rocks somewhere at any time. There's going to be some spots on that, I feel like.
And honestly, based on what individuals like yourself has said, and Trey, when I had him on the show, and Tyler and other people that are really good sticks at Kerr, spots are easy. You have to find a largemouth, generally speaking, if you want to win. And so hopefully that also helps with the question. You can go out there with a damn Ned rig and catch 6 pounds, like easily there, but that's not going to be the different age. You need a unicorn.
But those spots are getting bigger on Kerr. I mean, I caught one the other day. It was almost 4 pounds. I mean, I've caught a bunch of citation spots this year. So I mean, you can. There's been 15 pound bags of spots brought in. I know people that probably have caught 20 pounds of spot. I haven't seen that weighed in or myself done that, but it's not far from that. I mean, it's getting there, especially up towards like the dam, that end of the lake, and Nutbush. The spots are definitely bigger up that end of the lake.
That's crazy than like a couple of years ago when it was just a dink fest.
No, it's still a dink fest in a lot of those places. I mean, it'll drive you crazy. And if you get an area with that, I mean, I just leave. I mean, there's too much competition right there. So if you're around all those dinky spots, I just try to switch places or switch areas.
Billy Coles on Instagram says, Bugs is the devil. Okay, well, Billy, that's so hurtful. But you're also on Smith Mountain Lake, so that's completely different, boss.
See, I would say that about Smith Mountain Lake. And you say that about Kerr.
Shots fired. There we go.
No, not in a bad way. I just can't figure the damn place out to any degree of consistency. Smith Mountain, that is. I go up there and fish docks and things like that. I haven't put the time in up there, honestly. But I know it's got just giant bass, and I watch all the weights get weighed in. I see Billy weigh-ins and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's got quality fish and probably bigger, better quality fish than bugs for sure. I don't know if it has as many numbers.
It probably doesn't have many numbers. I just feel like it has more bait. There's got to be the reason why the fish are getting bigger there. It's got to be a food thing or something. There's something about Kerr that's off in the biomass of that place.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm not smart enough to know what that is, but as much bait and area and structures in that lake, I feel like the fish should be bigger for sure.
You mentioned earlier, if they're small, you catch them, you just leave. Do you have a number in your head where if I catch 28 12-inch spots, then I bug out? Or is it just you see a swarm of them on the graph and you leave?
Yeah, you see a swarm. I mean, you throw your bait out there and catch 2 or 3, and you can't weed through little ones. If you can't weed through little ones, it's time to bounce.
That's a really good, yeah.
But I mean, it depends. Also depends on where I'm at. You know, if I can catch a keeper spot and I'm looking for 5, I'll take any 5. It doesn't matter. But you know, if I'm trying to call up, even if I need more than 1 2-pounder, I'm not in an area that doesn't have 2-pound spots. I'm not staying there.
Does running up lake ever? Everyone talks about mid lake and down by the dam, and it really sounds like the upper portion, the Roanoke River section, is just kind of never talked about. Is that because it's just too dangerous to run, or there's just never weight up there?
No, it's weight up there. I mean, you got guys like Clay Samples that goes up there and drops 20 pounds. I don't know Clay personally, but we're friends on Facebook, and I see the bags that he weighs in. So I know you can catch him up there in the river. And there's a lot of good river fishermen. I think for me, I've gone up in the river. My buddy GW, when I had an Allison bass boat, it was my first fiberglass bass boat, and tore my lower unit up there running around the river with him. But there's bigger fish in the river, in my opinion. I don't run up there like Clarksville area this time of year. I haven't been up there recently enough to keep it honest. Like there, when stripers come, that's pretty much where I stay at, is up at that end of the lake and grassy. I really don't go beyond Rudd's when I'm striper fishing November, December, and January. But this time of year, you know, it feels like as many tournaments go out of Occoneechee that there would be such a congregation. If the theory holds true that largemouth generally don't roam farther than 1 mile. There's been a couple studies done.
Yeah.
I don't know if those studies were done on blueback herring lakes. Is the thing, but if that theory were to hold true, the hypothesis were to be true, then you should just be a massive congregation of bass around Occoneechee Boat Ramp at all times, or in that stretch of lake. And I just don't feel like I could go up there sometimes this time of year and you struggle to catch 5 14-inch fish. And again, I could probably list 10 guys that would probably disagree with me and go up there and catch 20 pounds, but that's just my experience right now.
It is interesting, yeah.
I don't go up to that end of the lake, but I think there's a brim bid bite up at that end of the lake, but you're looking for 8 bites and weighing in 5. They'll probably be the right 5. Unless you know the river like the back of your hand, I think you can go in there like some of those guys that know the river. I think they can go up there and run it. But you better be careful up there running it. I'll tell you that.
And I think you also brought up an interesting point earlier. Like this is for a lot of people that aren't maybe in your area, but like up near me, Northern Virginia, Maryland, Delaware. This is a big ass lake. And if you're running from Nutbush all the way up there, that is a pretty good drive. And so you got to be damn sure that you're going to have a bite up there if you're committing to that. Correct.
Yeah. People that go up there, I think, spend a lot of time at that section of the lake and have confidence up at that section of the lake. It's great during the springtime. I mean, I love it during the springtime, especially you want a spinnerbait bite and get some stained water coming in there good. It's really good. I got on a really good dock bite up in Bluestone back in the spring. So I mean, like it holds fish. It's just this time of year, and maybe I'm just fixated on this schooling bite. I look forward to it every year. It's 2 months where you can just go out there and catch you anywhere from 25 to 60 fish in a day. And once that happens, I never get below Goat Island ever when this bite turns on, and then I'll transition to stripers sometime in November or so. Yeah, in the springtime, I'll stay up in Grassy and Clarksville and up towards the rivers, but after that, I don't go up there that much.
Then, as always, guys, drop your questions here. Best question is going to win a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. Here's just another statement. We got Shane Flint Outdoors. Dedicated 100 amp lithium battery to my 2 graphs is what he has. We got Shad Daddy that says hi. We got another question on Instagram. He asks, how long do you give a fish that you're seeing on Lioscope before you move on? I tend to have an issue where I stick too long with a certain fish I see.
It depends on how big I think the fish is. I do think a lot of people will spend too much time, in a tournament situation. If I'm trying to cover a lot of water, 1 or 2 casts and just move on. It's just not worth it. When I'm on that suspended bass bite, generally I can tell on the live scope if they're high enough in the water column, how fast they're moving. Sometimes I'll see them if they're below 10 or 12 foot. I'm not even going to spend the time to let my bait fall to it because you're just wasting time. I'm looking for those fish higher in the water column. The more hungry they're eating, it doesn't mean there's always exceptions to every rule. But those fish, that's a one cast and done kind of thing. If you get that fish to turn on your bait, He's either going to eat it or you're going to work it fast back to the boat, and that fish is going to follow you in. You're not going to get another good cast. Every now and again, if it makes it to like 40 foot, you can grind it in real quick and do another pitch and get a reaction bite. As it lands over their head, they'll jump up, shoot up and get it. But it's usually one or two casts a fish. I won't sit there and just repetitively cast at the same fish.
Something I heard, which was interesting, and I'd love to get your opinion on it, is targeting groups, 2 or more, not just an individual, because it's harder to make one fish react versus a group. So if you are going around, you just see one, do you make the cast? You're like, it's going to be hard to get him to be triggered, and I'm just going to continue to look for just a pod.
No, I'm not going to let a solo not see my bait. A lot of times, what I find, the solos are the bigger fish. And there's, I remember last year there was a time there when it got really slow that you actually didn't want to cast to a group because you knew it was going to be like £1.50 to 210, something like that. It was all the solo fish that were the 240s to the 3.5s. But there's something to be said about that. So I may go to a weightless bait at a solo. There's competition when it's more 2 or 3 fish, so your presentation doesn't matter as much. They care more about taking it away from their friend than they do inspecting what they're about to eat. The more fish it is on that schooling bite, the easier it is to get them to bite, but the quality is usually your singles. And again, bigger fish, I think, tend to not group up. If they do group up, they're going to be grouped up with fish the same size or damn near close to it.
And when you mention that schooling bite here and you see a group and you said you're going to target the fish above, is there any validity to the fact that like the bigger fish are going to be lower in the school trying to pick up the scraps, whatever falls?
I've seen some of that. We've done it before. My partner Austin and I, we've done it before where we knew that the bigger fish, we started noticing that we'd pull all the small fish off a brush pile and there'd be 2 blobs still left in the brush pile. And we would actually throw our bait in there to pull the small ones and then come quickly behind when they were gone and try to target the big fish.
That's actually pretty smart.
We've done that before. But that was one of those things, you're fishing and we're catching dinks. And it's like, man, there's 2 still nice ones and you did it. And then it's like, well, is that a pattern? And it turned out to be a thing. It didn't work every time. But we started doing that. So one of us, instead of both of us casting at the same school at the same time to get them excited, we'd intentionally try to pull them off and then have the other one come in behind it before they could go back to the brush pile.
Is that generally like you're pulling the spots away to get to the largemouth, or is that also just the bigger spots won't school?
And bigger spots will school. I mean, we caught one yesterday. It was 260 or 270 spot, and it had 4 or 5 with it, the same size, if not bigger. So they'll school too. But if there's going to be a size difference, in my experience, I will see smaller spots mixed with bigger spots, but largemouth tend to seem to be one of, within a pound, 3/4 of a pound of the same size as what I've seen. But again, you can't catch everyone in the school to weigh them either. You just can kind of go by what you see as you're pulling them to the boat, and all their friends are trying to take it away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's see. We got Everett Garner here with a question. How do you catch suspended bass? I've never had any luck with them. Well, that's basically what this whole show is basically about this time of year. Everett. Yeah. So you're in good company here.
So I would say if you without live scope, and again, I've told you on the show, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I know some people hate the technology. I'm not going to have a public opinion on it other than I love fishing and I like catching fish, and it helps me catch more fish, and it's a tool. And I've seen people get this tool and not be able to make any difference before they had the tool or after they had the tool. So there's still something you have to learn about using the tool effectively. But without it right now, the only way I would know how to go out and target them would be walking baits on points. And I'd be trying to throw up in 5 foot of water, and I'd keep my boat in 20 foot and just try to work it out. And then I'd try to fan cast a point a few times. And if there's enough fish there, you're going to get one blow up on it or something, or you're going to see them blowing up somewhere. And that's the only way I know without live scope. And then with live scope, it's, knowing what you're looking at on the screen. And then that's part of it. Then you start to learn the fish behavior. And are they actively feeding fish? Are they finicky fish? What kind of mood are they in? Are they in the right water column to be feeding? And again, if you're in a tournament situation, you have limited time. You don't want to sit there and follow fish around and wait for them to get into the mood to eat. So you're looking for fish set up the way you want to be set up. And if you don't have it, you move to the next one.
I think that's what's so important is it's basically you're sight fishing like you would 20 years ago for bedding fish, but it's on a screen. And it's the same principles. Like if you can't get that one on the bed to bite, you got to move because you can end up spending all day on that one fish.
Yeah. And everybody who gets live scope for the first, it's inevitable. So you're going to stay, but you're learning too. You're learning what you're seeing. So it's part of the learning process. Like, it's not get live scope and you catch fish. I don't care. I mean, I got it in 2018 when it first came out, and it took me a year of just playing with the daggone thing before I felt like I was of even average proficiency with it. So it's still a tool that you have to learn at the end of the day. And people can debate whether it's a skill or not. I know that, there's going to be people that say, live scopes cheating, et cetera, et cetera. I would just say, unless you're hand fishing, I don't want to hear about technology. Mm-hmm. I will agree on live scope that there is something about the instant feedback loop that does give you a more significant advantage. But to me, side scanning, it was just as a powerful, innovative technology as live scope. Some people compare it to 360, but I do know there's a jump in the live feedback loop. I get that. I understand that. But it's still a tool, and in my experience, I'm seeing the fish adapt to it. And I think it's making the shallow bite better for people.
It's making the shallow bite better. There's an evolution where you need the scope now to be at 120, 200 feet because they do move when you hit them with that canister ray. They just do. And I don't know if it's that or they just feel the boat now. Who knows? The one tip I'll offer everyone that's listening about getting better with live scope is take a crappie jig, some Berkeley Gulp 1-inch out with you, and just catch everything you see so you can learn real quick what you're seeing. That was the fastest way for me to learn, to make sure, like, okay, the way they stack up, these are bluegill, these are crappie, this is 100%.
That's good advice for sure.
How much did crappie fishing make you better with this stuff, honestly? Because the crappie guys I've had on, man, they're freaking good with the scope.
Yeah. I mean, it helps you. It's what you just said. It helps you refine what you're looking at. I mean, you go out there with a crappie jig, you're going to catch striper, you can catch largemouth, you can catch crappie, catch white perch, catfish. I mean, I've done a whole lot of damage on a little bitty white crappie jig down there, especially in the wintertime when the water gets really cold and clear. Mm-hmm. But no, it helps a whole lot. I probably ought to crappie fish more than I do. Generally, when my uncle's freezer gets empty is when I start going crappie fishing. He'll call and remind me that his freezer's empty, so I'll go. But I like going in February, March. That's when they're really big, like the crappie, and they're out there suspended. The big singles are out there, and you go out there and catch, 2+ pound crappies then. And I usually go around May some, but right now it's just so much fun going out there catching these fish on the school and bite that's kind of what it's occupying my time.
We have a really fun question here, and this is actually something I don't think I've brought up before. We got Chris that says, just want to say whoa to the 3 big fat ones on the wall behind you. Totally off topic, but what's your PB? Do you have a story for all those fish?
I do. The one up top is the closest I've come to 10 pounds. It's 1 ounce short of 10 pounds on 2 different scales, and it broke my heart. The one below it was 8 pounds and 15 ounces, I think, 8 pounds and 14. And then the other one was like 8.6. All of them came off a spinnerbait.
Crap.
Yeah. And then the striper over there, that was my biggest on bugs. It's 33 inches.
That's a pig. Good Lord.
Yeah, I caught that one in Grassy 4 years ago, I think. It's a pig it's anything over 30 inches at bugs is a nice fish. Smith Mountain Lake's completely different. But yeah, that's the story of those 3, but all just on a spinnerbait and watersheds within 10 miles of my house.
That was my next question. Are they Mexico fish or is it actually local fish?
No. They were on watersheds, like
that's
15-acre impoundment type watersheds. That's what they are. I think the biggest fish I've ever caught out of a public lake was 7 pounds, and that was out of Hyco.
7's not too shabby either, dude. That's pretty
no.
good.
I was Carolina rigging a Cinco out of a community hole that I think 2 months ago produced like 28-pound bag. It's like everybody knows about it. A lot of big fish set up there. It's a timing deal. But yeah, I caught a 7-pound out of there. But I mean, Heiko's got 10 pluses in it. That's why I try to get there in the spring as much as I can. There was 11 caught out of there last year and another 10. So that's got big fish in it too.
That Carolina, Virginia border area is so fun. There's just so many lakes that if all you did was fish BFLs and tournaments, there's so many lakes that don't get touched, but they look really cool to go explore. And that's fascinating because I feel like there's a lot of anglers, unless a BFL or a cat goes there, you just won't fish it.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, true.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just a fun fisherman. I dabble in tournaments. I do like to compete. I like to learn. Sometimes, competing against other people, you learn faster. But at the end of the day, I just like to fish, period. So, yeah, Heiko is a great lake. It's got numbers, but it's got quality in it, too. I mean, like I said, I've caught a bunch of fish over 5 in that lake. I love that lake. You can go do docks. You can fish offshore if you want to fish offshore. You can do this suspended bite. Like it's like Smith Mountain Lake and Bugs Island, not necessarily in setup, but the type of bites you can get on. Got together and had a very smaller baby. And it's just a bunch of different stuff you can do on it. So I love Heiko.
So freaking cool. And we got a fun one here. No, not a spinnerbait bite. If you don't know, guys, Shane Flynn Outdoors, he caught Shane, you're gonna have to speak for this, a 32 or 35 pound bag this summer out of a Fredericksburg area lake. And this is a great thing that I was gonna bring up. What the hell is it with the spinnerbait at Kerr? Like, there are just some lakes that get a weird bait that works for them. Is it just the color of the water or something? Because it's always been a thing there.
Yeah, I don't know. It has been a thing. You throw in, them big swim baits, swim jigs. I think all 3 of those produce a good bite. But there's something about throwing a spinnerbait, beating it up against the brushes, against wood. I think it's just a lot of shad in the lake. Obviously there's a lot of threadfin, there's a lot of gizzard shad, a lot of bluebacks. So I think because that's the primary forage that it just shines. And then I'd say normally it keeps a twang. I call it a twang, like a tinge to the water. Like last year, I remember being up towards the dam. I was sitting in 14 foot of water and could see fish swimming on the bottom. Like that's how clear it was. Yeah, and this was in April or May is how clear it was. So it feels like it gets clearer and clearer, but I think most of your spinnerbait fishermen are in the back of Nutbush up towards Grassy, Clarksville, in the back of pockets, things of that nature, unless the whole lake is kind of muddied up a little bit or stained up a little bit from the spring rains.
What's your spinnerbait setup? 12-pound fluorocarbon, 16, 20? Like, what do you go with?
It depends. If I'm fishing like shallow around cover, I like to do 16 to 18 pound. I'm fishing nothing but Sunline Shooter and FC Sniper. And then sometimes when I'm throwing like a smaller 3-bladed, trying to be a little bit more finesse, I go to 12 or 14 pounds. It just depends on how stained the water is, how much wind's blowing, and how much cover I'm fishing around.
How sensitive do you like your rod? Is it more of like a chatterbait, crankbait rod, or are you going to go a little bit more sensitive?
No, I yank on them when they. So once I feel the bite, it's not an instant, slack hook set, but it's like a lean, and I'm trying to lean into them. So I fish a medium heavy. I usually don't like anything over 7 foot. I'm 5'11", and I like shorter rods for accurate casting. A lot of times, when I'm fishing a spinnerbait, you're trying to look for accurate casts. That's the other thing. When I first started fishing, I thought you just had to go bomb a spinnerbait. It's a lot of flipping and pitching it. It's as soon as it hits the water, 3 or 4 reel turns and it's on, and then you just reel in and you're on to the next one. So I like something where I can pitch accurately in a medium heavy, as far as the action of the rod.
There was one classic. It was a while ago because Aaron Martins was in it, and I think it was on the White River chain of lakes, and he pulled out like this pistol grip rod so he could like roll cast his crankbaits through the docks, and it was like 5 feet, and it was insane. But him going on his tirade, he just talked about it. Like when you have these short rods, he basically just Clifton, what he says, like, I don't have to make a bomb cast, like you said, like I can just roll cast, and I'm just precise with everything. I wish the manufacturers would start coming back with rods like that specifically for like dock fishing and close quarters combat, because everything just feels generically either 6 to 8 feet now. There's none of those specific rods anymore.
Lew's makes a 6.8 extra heavy power that I actually use for skipping mag drafts. So you need something heavy so you can actually get it under there. And a lot of times those fish hit it and it's pushing it to you. So even with the treble hook on the mag draft, that heavy, but sometimes I'll throw a 6 cents whale swim bait. They look like a mag draft, but I don't dance where they kind of have more like a bigger body shimmy to it.
Yeah, a bigger.
So I'll throw that on a big single treble hook, especially in weeds, and I'll use that 6/8 extra heavy for that. And obviously that's a big 7/0 hook, and you want to yank on those fish to get that hook in there. But yeah, I like a shorter rod. The biggest rods I do throw out on my A rigs, I throw like a 7-11. Throw a lose extra heavy on the heavy to extra heavy on those, but generally I'm in that 6/8 to 7/1, 7/2 range. I don't like a really long rod at all. I mean, the reels now you can bomb cast stuff with 7-foot rods. You don't need a giant rod always. And again, like I'm not super tall either, so I like a smaller rod to roll cast with.
Yeah, we got Dave Lawrence that says the old timers will tell you that those short rods are better for throwing spinner baits for the same reason. I'm going to probably talk to one of my sponsors, Catoctin, about getting like a custom rod made for that, because I'm really starting to see the benefits there. David also said Greenbrier and Hagerstown if you're looking for trophies. I don't know if you're joking or not, but that place gets stocked with so many trout. I wouldn't be shocked with that. Let's look over on Instagram. We got some questions here. We got The Current again. If Nutbush and the dam were off limits in a tournament this weekend, where would you start fishing? Like up lake, mid lake, I guess would be good breakdowns of that.
If the dam, so I'm assuming everything past Custawilla, I'd probably stay around Rudd's and the Ivy Hill area. If I wanted to keep chasing the school invite, but there's a brim bed bite still going on. I mean, it's not as hardcore as it was in June and July, but it's still going on. So you can always run. And there's still a shallow bite going on too around Wood. I think you just got to find the right areas of the lake. That bite's not going on in a bunch of areas of the lake, so I'm not going to say where they're at because I got some friends that are fishing those sections of the lake. But there is a shallow bite still going on. I think you can still go catch 15 to 18 pounds doing it too. But I'd probably stay around Ivy Hill and Rudd's. And if it wasn't a tournament, I'd probably go into Clarksville just because sitting here talking with you about it, I realized I haven't been up there in a while. And sometimes I need a change of scenery.
Yeah. And to the brim bed, we talked about Billy Coles about this on the show, and I've talked about it before. Around the full moon, guys, is a better time to also target that bite. It goes in waves just like the bass spawn. So it's something that you can check on, always check on it. But don't just have blind faith that it'll work for you.
Yeah, I've had a lot of disappointing days chasing that ghost bite, and
yeah,
I mean, really disappointing days where you spent the day before doing nothing but going and checking the beds and looking and seeing the fish, and then come back the next day and either they're there and you can't get them a bite, or they've ghosted completely. So it'll break your heart for sure.
And you're right, is that schooling bite down there just because of the blueback? Is there just a higher concentration of bait, you think, in that part of the lake?
I think it's a higher concentration of bait. I think that's probably where a lot of the water stays the most stable.
That makes sense.
I do think they like stability. I think the bait likes some of that stability, and that's why they stay down there, and that obviously brings the fish. And I think a lot of the structure that holds these fish, people have put more of it out, around those areas. I mean, that's a giant area of the lake, like you said. I mean, Grassy Creek's filled with brush piles and some cane piles too. But I don't know. I just assume because the bait stayed around. I know a lot of the bluebacks stay around the dam and the mouth of Nutbush. I think they make it as far as the big point that splits the two. I don't know how far beyond that they go very often.
Yeah, I think guys like the Concurrent was saying, you can't fish the whole lake. And I think this is what will really hurt people in the area. Kerr is really one of the only freak lakes we have. I know if you live in the Carolinas, Alabama, you have a lot of lakes this size, but it can be intimidating if you're trying to go run and gun the whole freaking lake. Let's see. We got a ton of comments that came in. We got Shane Flynn Outdoors. Are you fishing large glide baits on Kerr?
Yes, I do. Over brush piles. That's one of those deals too, man. It's like, you're probably going to see a glide bait on my deck all year round, except for like late winter when because I even got stripers to react to it last year. I couldn't get any to actually commit to it. I got them to bite it and swat at it. But I'm not going to sit there and watch stripers do that for long, just for the sake of saying I caught one on a glide bait. But yeah, glide baits over brush piles are really good around rock, but it's the type of weather, in my experience, is when they're really going to turn on or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can get some heavy winds. I think heavy winds really help that. Has helped that. But some kind of ripple on the water is going to make that bite better. Unless you're targeting structure with it. I mean, then you kind of want it kind of like glass, so you can kind of see the bite.
I feel like it's harder to learn the glide bait bite than it is live scope, honestly. I've died so many tournaments this year. I had a friend, he makes glide baits, got in the boat with him. We caught 38 pounds. It was insane. Never seen it before. And I was like, you know what? This is the key for me cashing checks. Put that in the boat for 2 freaking tournaments and got my ass kicked. Didn't catch shit. So It's not instantaneous at all. No,
and I think people that are hardcore glide bait fishermen, they're okay going out there and blanking because they're out there for a 5-6+ pound bass. So that that's their thing. Where I still like to catch numbers. I tell everybody, if I can go out there and catch me 52 pounders, I'm tickled to death. I had a great day. I don't have to go out there and catch giants to have a good day. But yes, glide baits definitely do work on Kerr. But to your point, Thomas, you gotta know what you're doing with it, and you either got to live by it or die by it. And I genuinely try to throw it to test it out. If the conditions are right, if I get enough of them to act right with it, I'll keep it in my hand. But if not, it just gets put on the deck and it stays there all day.
100%. All right, guys, got a couple more questions here we're going to get through. Let's see. Got another one from Instagram. And then, guys, if you want your questions shared on the show, Instagram, for some reason, will not let me share the comments. Neither will Twitter or X. Go on over to YouTube or Facebook. I can share it. We got I am Cretin. Cretin. I don't know, dude. I'm sorry. What would you do if you had no live scope or any graphs on your boat and are coming out on Ivy Hill? What would you do to catch some fish, bass, or striper? Doesn't matter.
First thing in the morning, I would try to find some fish surfacing or a point where you're seeing them surface more. I think the stripers are surfacing now in the morning some around that area. So I'd probably just go looking around for that for the first hour. And then after that, I'd go throw some crankbait on some rock, probably no deeper than 10 foot. I'd throw a lot of that, and then throw a lot of topwater, frogs, poppers, whopper ploppers, covering water as much as you can, in the back of pockets, and just fish wood. Everybody's probably going to be doing that without electronics, but that's probably still the best way to get bit out there, in my experience, if you're really doing it. Wood's always going to hold fish. Wood and rock are always going to hold fish on bugs in 10 foot or less. It's just how you just get in the area that's holding them. You got to cover enough of those spots. So fish fast is what I would say too. Don't get hung up, going into robot mode. Fish high percentage areas and move. High percentage areas and move.
I think it's very unique that it's hard to find anglers that are good at fishing like the Potomac and Kerr. They do exist, but because it's such different styles of I camp in a grass bed for 8 hours versus I need to burn 200 gallons of fuel. And it's interesting. I forget his name. He won one of the BFLs at Kerr this year. And I asked him about that off air. It's like the place that gives me a panic attack is the Potomac because I don't think I can sit long enough to do that. And it's a cultural thing. If you grow up on Kerr or North Carolina Lake, that's literally what you have to do to, generally speaking, to cash a check.
Yeah, you've got to cover spots. And I think Kerr is a spot lake too. I know everybody says it's a pattern lake. I'm not saying that. I have done that before. But the more I fish it, every year goes by, I'm starting to see, and sometimes it's, every other year they'll load up, but they reuse the same spots. And it's kind of freaky that they reuse the same spots at the same time. It's like there's some internal clock that says, hey, go set up on this point or these sets of points, one of these 3 points for these 3 weeks out of this month. I don't know what's bringing them there, but they do set up that way.
What would you consider a true pattern lake then?
For me, a pattern lake, and like I said, we've done this on bugs, which is, hey, they're on like a brim bed bite we were on one time. They weren't in the back of every pocket. Every pocket you go into these subtle little fingers or little pockets within the pockets. They'd be on the first 1 or 2 of those at every main lake pocket, but the pocket couldn't be. You wanted a little bit deep in the back. So then we just started trying to find all of those, and we just started running that and catching fish. And then it was, a specific kind of dock. There was a bite we were on, and it was going to be the first 2 docks in every main lake cut. And after a while, you just didn't even have to fish in the rest of them. You just go hit those 2 on this side, those 2 on the side, and you go. And you run that. So, I mean, it is a pattern or a secondary points with some rock. That's it's kind of an obvious one, but I think too, they relate to the same water depth. So if you get on fish and for some reason they're relating to that 12 to 14 foot range, you can kind of go at every point in that area and start to stay in that 12 or 14 point range, and they're relating to the depth. And if you would consider that a pattern, I would say, points in the same depth. That's a pattern on bugs sometimes.
That's freaking awesome. Will, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything we can promote for you? What do you got coming up? Shout out to sponsors or anything like that?
Nothing coming up. Again, Brandon Curtis at Southside Southern Boat Works keeps me on the water, so I always want to give him a shout out. But yeah, I don't have anything coming up. We've got the two day 5 Alive Classic coming up in September. I'm going to fish that, and I'm going to go play with some stripers this weekend in the Hurricane on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. That's really my only plans, is just doing some fun fishing until that 5 Alive Classic, and then after that, it's going to be the cat trails this fall on Kerr. I'm going to jump into those until the stripers start biting good, and then nobody will see me for a couple months unless you see me out there striper fishing.
Dude, that sounds like you're living the dream. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep.
Guys, the winners are, let me see, Christian Sherwood, you just want a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. And let's go with Everett Garner. You also want a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. You know the drill. Message me on Facebook, Instagram, or email me, fishingthedmv@gmail.com. The other thing is, guys, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I mentioned it again, Saturday, August 17th at 6 p.m. is going to be the Patreon meetup. I'll be putting a poll out on our private group and email what kind of food you guys want to eat so I don't kill anyone. We'll get that going there. We also will have Tyler Highpole, and I'm getting a couple more guides. They're going to be there also just to ask your questions. Not really a seminar thing, just to basically chill, talk. We got some cool things we're going to be giving away and getting some orders for our big meetup this fall. We're going to have a massive meetup this fall. That one is going to have Captain Steve Chaconis. It's going to have a guide from the Shenandoah River, the Susquehanna River, the Potomac River, the Upper Potomac. It's going to be a big old river shindig, but that's going to be later on in the fall, and we're going to talk about that as well. Like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester,